Hi guys, good morning or good afternoon. Let's see how many people are coming. So today I'm going to cover Emacs Lisp. I'm going to teach a beginner's tutorial about Emacs Lisp, programming Emacs Lisp. So nobody is here yet, so let me just type out what we're gonna do today. So this is my Emacs blog. So create a new, gonna teach Emacs Lisp to beginners. Now, this is assuming you never had programmed Emacs Lisp before. However, I assume you have some experience using Emacs, and you had some experience programming in other languages, JavaScript, PHP, or Python, Ruby, whatever. So I'm not going to tell you what does a variable mean or what does a function mean, but so in order to program Emacs Lisp, I think I'm going to wait for people to come on. Um, but meanwhile, let's see. I'm going to Emacs Lisp. So, let's see if it's people is coming. Oh, hi there. So I'm going to cover Emacs Lisp. So let's begin. So feel free to ask questions. In fact, do ask questions or do comment. So I know where I'm going. You can direct me to whether I'm too slow or too fast, or any question, just comment, type in the box here, comment here. So I'm going to cover Emacs Lisp. So what the things are we gonna do? I'm gonna show live example and how to look up Lisp function doc, and how to eval Lisp code. So I'm gonna do an example first, and how to evaluate Emacs Lisp code. You have to evaluate it, otherwise Emacs would not know your function. And how to look up Emacs Lisp function documentation. You need to know how to open file, how to move cursor, how to save file, write to file, for example, things like that. How to create a string, things like that. So live example, how to evaluate Emacs Lisp code, how to look up Emacs Lisp documentation, and so hi guys. So anyway, so this is my Emacs tutorial. This is my Emacs blog. So let's look in browser, and actually I'm actually hoping for some people to come on, or say hi, so we can get started. Because I'm going to start to code a Emacs Lisp example, like a simple example. Okay, so should I begin? Okay, so let's go back to. So anyway, I have a Emacs. This is my Emacs blog, and I have a Emacs Lisp tutorial. It's a written tutorial, and I'm just going to do a live demo. So, and in this box, Emacs Lisp basics. Basically, that's all you need to know, and we are going to cover some of these. I'm going to show Emacs Lisp basics. Uh, this we probably skipped. This I'm gonna show you, and I'm gonna show you how to evaluate doc lookup, and oh yeah, search documentation. And the last one is how to edit Emacs Lisp code. Because Emacs Lisp code has a lot of parentheses. Actually, I want to start. Okay, yeah, sounds good. Thank you for comment. Okay, so is that better? So I think I'm going just to begin. Okay, let's go back to my browser. Let me put my browser here. And Okay, before we begin, I have a window here, and this window on the left, it shows every command I ever type in Emacs, like every command. Like I press a key, you see the backward word there, and I press another key, you see the previous line. So it lists all the commands I call in Emacs, including typing, for example, including typing. So you can see it says self insert command 16 times, and also it shows the keys I'm using to invoke those commands. I'm using a Vorak keyboard layout, so the letters may seem funny to you, but that's just a key I'm using. And I'm also using Xah Lee keys, which is a mod for a key binding mod. So I'm not using standard Emacs key binding such as control and stuff. So you won't see control or meta in my keys almost never, except some like here's control G for keyboard quit. So I think I'm going to begin. So yeah, let's begin. How do you get that? That is super easy. I covered a few times. You use this mod. Let me show you. So I go to my Emacs directory, alpha directory, and this is the mod, command log mod.el. So you can download it. It's on Malpa, so you can just download it. And after you download it, just run these three commands, and you'll get that. It's very useful. So let's begin. And again, please do comment. I every 5 minutes I check comment to see if I'm going too fast, too slow, or what questions you have. Oh, we are going to cover Emacs Lisp for beginners. So I'm going to begin. So let me show you an example. Emacs Lisp, it's actually very simple. If you learn just a little bit Emacs Lisp, just understand it a little bit, it'll be tremendously helpful when you use Emacs, because everything is based on Emacs Lisp. So let me give you an example. So let's say I want to write a function. Okay, let me just do it. So define, I wanted to define a function. Let's name it f, and this is docstring something. Okay, we don't care about that docstring, and let's just say insert. Okay, insert a string something. Okay, insert something. That's right. Okay, now I have a function. That's a function. Now I evaluate the code. Okay, now it's done. Now I just go here, type meta x, and press F, enter. You see, it's a function. It's done. So I can use this function anywhere. I just copy this and put in my Emacs init, and in any buffer anywhere I can just call it. For example, let's do it here. mx f, enter. It just inserts something. Now let's see if I want to get some a bit more complex. Let's say I want to do this. Insert that and insert that and backward char 4. Okay, so what that mean? What does this mean is that you'll insert this string, this p and p for paragraph in HTML, then you'll move cursor backward 4 times. So you'll place the cursor between the p. So let's evaluate it. Okay, now let's go to here. Let's call the function mx f, enter. You see, now I can now I have a paragraph showing browser. Okay, so you can see this is how you define a function in Emacs Lisp. And in fact, in Emacs Lisp, the language, everything is parenthesized basically. So you see a parenthesis. It's all nested parentheses, and the whole thing is one big parenthesis. So that's kind of the first item we just a basic example. Let's change it to UL here. So okay, interactive. Okay, so um, no, well, what interactive? Okay, so I'm gonna explain that later, but let me just give you a quick explanation. Like in other languages, when you define a function, you just define a function. But in Emacs, when you define a function, you see people needs to call that function interactively. Like for example, I cannot. For example, I want to call the function f. This is function f we just defined. Let's say I want to call that. Well, you cannot. You don't, like normally in normal languages you say f, parenthesis, and you want to evaluate that. But in Emacs Lisp you do it this way, f without any argument, since this function doesn't have any argument. But you don't want to type the function name like that, so that doesn't work. So basically the interactive clause just turns this function into a command so that you can just call mx on it. For example, let me show you example. But anyway, we are going too far with that. Let's go back to. I mean, I'm gonna explain the basics first. But okay, let me just show you a quick example. Let's say we define another function y. Okay, and let's say insert xyz. Okay, xz. Okay. Um, let's just say insert 4. Okay, so this is a function. We evaluate it, uh, and we can call it. How do you call it? Like that. Evaluate void variable 4. Oh, okay, I made a mistake. So this should be a string. 4. So evaluate this, and now we type this and we evaluate it, and it says 4, right? But now you cannot do mx on the function y, because it's not a command. I mean, it's just a function to be used inside this code. So for example, if I try meta x and I type y and I say yes, wait, let me delete that. Well, actually, the y is it. Let's try again. Meta x y, the function is not there, because you see it shows yank and yank pop and yank rectangle and stuff. There's no function called y, because if you don't have cancel. If you don't have the interactive clause there, then Emacs will not consider it as a interactive function, meaning that when you do mx, you cannot call the function. The function is not a command. It's simply it's not there. So anyway, we are going a little bit ahead of ourselves. So let's go back to let me go back to the basics. Okay, so here's the example how you define a function. Let's save this .el. So let's go back to Emacs blog. So so that's an example. Then the next one is how do you evaluate Emacs Lisp code. So you see we can write a function here. Let's try another example. Plus 1 2. So we want to evaluate that. Do it. You can see the answer 3 here. Okay, so let's go back here. So we want to how to evaluate Lisp code and how to see the result in messages buffer. So whenever you okay, so how do you evaluate Lisp code? So here's how to eval Lisp code. There are many ways, but I'm going to show you two of the most important ways. So one of them is um, um, one of them is this: eval last sexp, and the other one is eval region. These two are the most important way to evaluate Emacs Lisp code. So let's go back to the Emacs Lisp code. Where is it? Okay, so for example, I just typed +12, and look at the left panel. You will see the command I'm calling. So I want to evaluate this line. So I just move the cursor to the right of the closing parenthesis. Then meta x eval last sexp. Okay, that's the command name. Now watch the left panel. I'm gonna press enter. So enter. Now you see the left panel will say eval last sexp. That's the command we just called. And on the bottom, on the right side, you can see the answer is 3 there. Now it also shows the pound sign O3 and X3 and stuff. Those are octal notations and hexo notations and key press. You see, it shows that because in Emacs Lisp, numbers are also characters. I mean, they are the same data type. So number 3 is the ASCII code 3 for the character that has ASCII code 3, and but anyway, just ignore it. So the result, okay, whenever you, okay, so let's back up. I'm kind of okay, so let's go back to my Emacs Lisp. So yeah, so these are the two. There are many ways to evaluate a Emacs Lisp expression. Now the most useful are eval last sexp, which is this one, and the other one very useful is eval region. The way you use eval last sexp is to put your cursor to the right of the last closing parenthesis. Then you just call the command. By the way, the command also has a shortcut, because otherwise, every time you want to evaluate, it's painful to type the whole thing. So by default, the shortcut is, let's look at it. So describe key. Let's do describe function. Eval last sexp. Okay, so this is a function, and it tells you by default the key is this one. Because I'm using Xah Lee keys, so I have a bunch of other keys that I use. But in Emacs, the default key is Control X, Control C. So let's copy that. Let's put it here. So that's how you evaluate. That's the most useful way, the most frequently used. The most, if you take statistics of all the ways of evaluating a function, that is the most useful. Eval last sexp. Remember, just put your cursor to the last parenthesis and call it. You see, you can see on the left panel. You can see I just called that command. Now the other way is eval region. Let's say you have a bunch of expression. Let's say I type this message something. Now this function message is just going to, this is like Python or other languages print. So when you want to print something, you say message. So but now let's say I want to evaluate both of these. Actually, let's do this. Seq x equals to 3, then x, let's say that. Okay, what this does is I'm going to set the variable x to 3, and here I'm going to add x and 2. Now I want to evaluate both of these. So now remember the eval last sexp. So I can do that way. So look at the left panel. So I'm gonna call the command by key. So I do it. So now it's done. That expression is evaluated. Now I move the cursor down. Now look at the left panel again. I'm gonna call the command by key. So eval last sexp. Now you can see at the bottom it says 5. That's how we do it. But if you have lots of lines, for example, if you have lots of, you want to eval the whole thing, how do you do that? So that way, suppose you have a bunch of expressions. One way is, you eval each one, like eval last sexp, eval last sexp. That's too slow. So you just select the whole thing and meta x eval region, enter. So that's how you do that. So these are the two ways, the most frequently used ways to evaluate Emacs Lisp expression. Yeah, CXCE. So that's good. So I'm going to, okay, let's go to talk about how to evaluate Emacs Lisp code. Now there are several other ways. So I'm going to let me show you my Emacs Lisp tutorial. So you go to practical eLisp, and you can see evaluate eLisp code. Now on this page it tells you all the ways to evaluate Emacs Lisp code. So there are like 5 or 6 ways you can, so there's eval last sexp, eval region. You can evaluate the whole buffer, eval buffer, or you can use load file. If you don't have the file open, you can just call meta x load file and pick a file. For example, you can use this to load your init file every time you make a change. Then there's eval define, eval expression. I mean, we are not going to cover that. The first two is most useful for when you are starting out with Emacs Lisp. So that's how you evaluate this expression. Now I'm going to, okay, so far this is how Emacs Lisp looks like, and now you know how to evaluate Emacs Lisp code. Now I'm going to show, and the result. Now where do you see the result? Let me show you that. The result, anytime if Emacs Lisp expression output and result, it's going to show in message buffer. So let's switch to switch buffer, messages. You see those are our previous outputs. So for example, let's do this again. Plus 3, 2, 1. So I'm going to evaluate this, and you see it shows 6 there. Normally it will just show at the bottom, but once you move the cursor, the result is removed. But you can always see it by just switching to the buffer messages. So switch to buffer messages. Now, by the way, there's a shortcut key to just switch to message buffer, and that is that. View echo area messages. That's a function. So normally the key binding for this function is hold on. So yeah, view echo area messages. That's a function that switches you to the messages buffer. It's basically equivalent to just call switch buffer and type messages. So by default, the key is CHE. So that's a default key, Control HE. Okay, let's copy this function name to my Emacs blog. So you can see, so this is a function you want to do. Okay, so what else? Okay, so the other important thing is how to look up Emacs Lisp function doc. So let's go back to so how long have I been going? 25 minutes. Okay, so let's go back to the our Emacs Lisp code. And I have, so there's an example, but suppose you want to know, so yeah, so what does interactive mean? You can find out. You can find out by using this function, describe function. So let's try that. Meta x. Hold on a second. Let me show the left panel. So okay, meta x describe function. Okay, then type the function name. Okay, interactive. Enter. Then Emacs pops up this help buffer. Basically, this is the inline documentation for that function, interactive. Now, this interactive function, it's a little bit complicated, but don't worry about it. I mean, it's a little bit complicated. Basically, the purpose of this interactive function is just to allow functions, to be used interactively. Like in normal programming languages, in Python or JavaScript, you write functions, but they are called in the source code. I mean, you don't call them interactively, but Emacs is different, right? Because you meta x to call some command all the time. So the interactive thing here, basically, when a function has that line, it it makes your function available as a command. But more than that, because like for example in Python, when you define a function, let's say the function will add 1 to the argument. So the function takes one argument and will add 1 to it. Now you can call that, in the code, you just put parentheses in the argument and you'll return a result. But in Emacs, if it's a command, how do you give it the argument? So it's kind of like that. So the interactive thing here helps in that way. You can give it a let's just give an example. Actually, this is more advanced. I don't plan to go into that, but let's show an example. So let's say this function asks user, what's your age? Okay, it will ask user what is your age, and then you will add 1 to it. So age, that's the argument, and the interactive here we can say, I think it's age. What's your age? Okay, and then we say number to string to number. Okay, I think that's it. So what this function does is, it will ask you for your age and you type a number, then you will add 1 to it and return it. So let's try it. Now remember how to evaluate a function? I just press a key and that's eval last 6. Now I'm going to meta x, type F, enter. So you see the prompt at the bottom, what's your age? Let's say I'm 18. Okay, 18. Wait, it doesn't return. Okay, why does it not return? I don't know. So let's look at the output buffer. Remember before we said, Emacs always output in the message buffer. So let's look at that. So we split the window, go to message buffer, messages. Okay, I don't see anything there. Let's try it again. um, Evaluate the function meta x f, enter. What's your age? Let's say 20. Enter. Oh, it doesn't return anything, but okay, so let's fix that. Let's actually add a message so it will print. um, uh, so this is how you can do it. So the message function takes one or more arguments. The first argument is a string, uh, your age plus 1 is. So this is the first argument, it's a string, but inside this string, whenever you have a percentage sign, percentage s means string, then it will take the second argument and fill it up here. So what this will do now is will print your age plus 1 is something. It will do that. So let's try that again. Evaluate the function. Now meta x f, enter. What's your age? Let's say I'm 30. Oh, there it is. You see the result. It says your age plus 1 is 31. Okay, so 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 far so good. I'm getting too tight. I'm not relaxed. When that happens, I'm not doing well. So it's like I'm becoming robotic, and so anyway, so if you have a question, let me know, and let me know how am I doing. Okay, so we showed two examples. So what we want to do, let's check if we did what we have covered so far. So examples, yes, we have examples. How to eval Emacs Lisp code? Yes, we know, because the answer is eval last sexp and eval region. Okay, how to see the result? That's easy. The result is shown in the messages buffer, and in fact you can just call the function view echo area messages to switch to that buffer. Okay, and how to look up elisp function doc? That's easy too. The answer is describe function. So let's type it here. So okay, so let's how to look up okay, so in a browser, let's refresh. So yeah, there it is, describe function. Okay, I think I've been talking for 30 minutes. I think actually I covered the most fundamental parts to Emacs Lisp programming. I'm going to answer that question in a bit, but let's go back to the tutorial. Let's go back to my Emacs Lisp tutorial. So we have actually covered the most important parts of Emacs Lisp. It may seem strange to you if you are the first time programming Emacs Lisp. Maybe it's tedious or something, but it's not. I mean, just remember, these are the most fundamental, the most important thing about Emacs Lisp. You must know, because if you look at someone coding Emacs Lisp, you will see that guy, he will call these functions every few minutes. So you know uh, keep that in mind. These actually are the functions you have to use all the time, every few minutes. the function we just covered. Okay, so let's go back to my Emacs Lisp tutorial. Let's look at some of the other examples and notes. I'm going to explain, talk a little bit about that. So the first one, Emacs Lisp basics. You know, we have seen some examples, but there are a lot more. For example, so this page is going to give you the basic syntax of Emacs Lisp. For example, how do you print it? How do you print things? Now we already covered some of these. So you call the messages the function named message. That's how you print things. And arithmetics, like how do you do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and things like that. So that's that. And it also covers a little bit other things. Emacs Lisp is not a strongly typed language. It's not statically typed, but values do have types. But they are like, I'm not going to go into the types of Emacs Lisp values. But if you begin to learn Emacs Lisp, usually like you don't have to worry about it. But basically you have integers and float and string. Integers, float, string, um, list. Okay, yeah, you do have few types, but you know if you read this page, later on you'll see. But let's start from here. So it covers converting float to integer, string to number or number to string, and true and false. Okay, true and false. Emacs Lisp does not have a Boolean data type. So what happens is that um, it has a value nil, just like nil nil, and that is false. Now everything else is true. Just remember that. So one is true, the number zero is true, a string is true, empty string is also true. Everything is true except nil. That's basically it. And how do you do equality testing and variables? Okay, I mean these are I should cover it, but I'm not sure I'm gonna have time to cover these. I mean I'm just giving you intros. I mean you can then read about it, if then else, and loop. Okay, so that's basically this page. That's what this page covers. Let's go back. uh, then I'm going to yeah. Then okay, so over here there's a bunch of Emacs Lisp examples. For example, we have shown some examples like how do you do 1 plus 1, or how do you insert a string. But on this page you will see many useful and practical examples of Emacs Lisp, such that you can actually copy them and put them in your Emacs init, and it will be useful. So you have insert text that we covered, insert text around region we have covered, um, select current word, select current line. Um, we have done. I mean, here is an example, um, and many more examples. Okay, I'm kind of getting lost. So yeah, ask me questions. So that gave me a direction like where I'm going. So how can I modify tabs and spacing easier? Okay, that's one question. I use this function I created from Stack Overflow answers. Do you know what R is? Oh yeah, I can tell you what R is. Okay, let me copy that and let me show you. Actually, that example is right here. Emacs Lisp examples. You can see it's right here. But anyway, let's show you that. Okay, first of all, let's make it so hex region start end. You are encode the region between start and buffer. So okay, remember we said that the interactive clause helps between the functional use and the interactive use. Now interactive use, the interactive function takes many arguments. It takes many string arguments, and when you have AR, it kind of take a code, a kind of a coded string, coded character. So when you have R, that means that means it will pass the uh, the beginning position of selection and end position of selection to your function's argument. Okay, so let me show you examples. So let's do that again. Let's begin at okay, that's our function. Can you tell what it is going to do? So let's evaluate it. Eval. Okay, now let's call it meta x ff. Enter. Okay, now let's go to the message buffer. You see, it says region begins at 506, region ends at 542. That means when okay, that takes some explanation. So in Emacs Lisp, the cursor position begins at at 1. So in a buffer, you always have a cursor around, and the cursor is measured. The position of a cursor is measured as its position. So when the cursor is at beginning of the buffer, the position is 1. Okay. Now if I move it here, the position is 2. Now how do you know? I mean, how can you tell? Let me show. Let's call the function describe char. Okay. So meta x describe char. Enter. So it will tell you that the character at my current cursor position, which is the D over there, you see the first line, 2 of 541. That means my cursor is at the position 2 of the maximum of 541 because the current buffer has 541 characters. So if I move the cursor down here and I call the describe char again, you see now it says 93 of 541. So remember that the cursor has a position, and okay, so that's one thing. Now what is when you have a selection? For example, I make a selection right now. You see there's a selection. Emacs call it a region, actually active region. Now when you have a selection, there's a beginning position and end position, and frequently that's important when you call Emacs Lisp commands because you want to know where does a selection begin, where does it end. Maybe you want to create a command that deletes the selection, maybe. So you want to know, where does the position, the selection begin and end. And when you want to do that, this R is helpful. Actually, this is going way a little bit more advanced. It doesn't make sense to beginners. But let me show you another way. It's much more simpler. Don't you know? Don't study. I mean, don't go into. Don't worry about interactive. Like, don't worry about it. Uh, all you do, when you call Emacs, is just put this interactive parentheses, no argument. Just do that. Just do that for the first 6 months of coding Emacs Lisp. Don't worry about that. And I'm going to show you, for example, alternative. How do you do that, which is more simpler and easier to understand. So in this function, we want to print beginning and end positions of cursor position. Okay, remove the argument, we don't need it. And here we just want to change that region beginning. Okay, and here is region end. Okay, that's it. So now we evaluate this function. Evaluate. Wait, hold on a second. Let me split the window and show the message buffer. So when we call the function, we can see the result right away on the other panel. So now evaluate the function. Mx ff enter. You see, it says region begins at 638 and region ends at 737. This function does exactly basically almost exactly like that one, except that one uses the interactive thing. Interactive is, it's kind of harder to explain until in order to explain it, you have to know more Emacs this concept. It's not actually a function. It's a it's a macro. Let's see, describe function. So anyway, you can, here's the inline documentation, describe function. You can read the details. So it says specify a way of passing arguments for interactive use of function. Yeah, but anyway, I recommend, don't worry about it for the first month you study Emacs Lisp until until you actually learned. I have basics here. Actually, just read my tutorial. It covers everything. Read my tutorial first. First of all, read this box. This box is the most important. Just follow them one by one, order by one by one. Then you want to get into cursor. For example, on this one, it talks about cursors and cursor positions. How do you get cursor positions? How do you find out what's the total number of positions? How do you move cursor positions? And how do you search for some text and so on? So basically, you follow. Basically, I would recommend you just take a few hours. Let's say 5 hours, 3 or 5 hours to read the first box, and you'll be covered. Then where you want to go. What kind of command you want to learn. There are many type of Emacs Lisp coding. You can write. You first of all, the most practical is to write some helpful command when you are programming or when you are writing or whatever you do in Emacs. You can, maybe sometimes you wonder, wait, wouldn't it be great if I just have this function that will help me maybe insert something, or maybe insert something depending on which file it is, or something like that, whatever. So text processing, that's one thing to do. Or you can, maybe you have a language of your own, you want to write a mod to syntax color it, so that's another task. So there's many ways you can go in writing Emacs Lisp. For example, diet, shell, all those are written in Emacs Lisp, but they are very diverse. For example, this is diet. It shows me the directory, and for example, this is eShell, ls date, and these two are Emacs Lisp mods, and they are written in Emacs Lisp, but their nature is totally different. Um, or you can, for example, I go to this file. This file actually I'm running Xah Emacs Lisp mod. So Xah Emacs Lisp mod. Now this mod, what does it do? It does syntax coloring, completion, things like that. Just like a programming language mod. So you see, the coloring, and so the tasks are different. There's different ways depending on what you want to do. So yeah, I would recommend you just read the first box. Then um, you kind of know where you want to go. Why is message redacted? Okay, any else? Any other questions? Okay, about your other question, how can I modify tabs and spacing easier? That I'm not sure what you mean by that. I mean, you could modify tabs. I mean, that's kind of a Emacs question. You can okay, how can I modify tabs and spacing easier? What do you mean? Okay, so there's a command that converts tab to space, but I don't know what you mean modify. You mean interactively, um, or do you mean setup, like configuration? Okay, so I've been talking for 50 minutes. This I'm not sure this is a great tutorial today because I'm kind of tight. I'm kind of nervous. I use a major mod, but I feel like it enforces four spaces. Oh, so I guess so that depends on what major mod it is. Because each major mod, so Emacs is not that consistent. Basically, each major mod, each programming mod, they have their own way of setting up the tabs and tabs and space. It's not actually very flexible, and it has a lot of quirks. Like almost each major mod is different. And Emacs Lisp provided some way to kind of an engine, so that if you write a major mod, you can rely on the engine and you'll be consistent. But actually it doesn't work that well. But I can, I have a article here, practical Emacs Lisp, and if you go down to actually just search for tab. Uh, okay, yeah, white space topic, tab space indentation setup. You go here and you can and it answers a lot of questions about tabs and spaces. I don't know if that's useful. Yeah, so it enforces four spaces, but sometimes you want two spaces. So I think in that case, which major mod is it? You have to actually deal with that particular major mod, because each major mod is it's just different. It's just coded by whoever wrote that mod. You have to ask that guy. I think it's probably just a configuration issue. I mean, you can. Oh, but well, Emacs does have a setup that you can use. Actually, I'm not sure, but anyway, yeah. So I don't know if there's a definite answer to that question. Um, Emacs does have a way to set up so that the tab will display, in a fixed number of space. Like you can set tabs to display in eight spaces or four spaces. But that's the displayed width of the tab. That's not actually, that's not related to when you press tab key, what will happen exactly. I mean, the issue is fairly complicated. There's a lot of confusions because when you press the tab key, there are several things may happen. One, it will insert a tab, or it will insert several spaces. Now, when you insert a tab, tab is a invisible ASCII character. It's one of the control characters. When you have a tab, then what width it shows is also differs in editors, and you can set by default in Emacs it's 8 spaces. Um, so anyways, yeah. So the indentation setup is always a little bit complex and it's not satisfactory in Emacs. So you have to look around. Okay, any more questions? I think that's it for today. Ask ask more questions, and that's it for today. What did I have for dinner? I had I had pizza. I bought pizza at Safeway, and I had pizza, and I'm kind of full. So anyway, thank you guys for coming. And so that was Emacs Lisp. I hope that's helpful. Maybe we'll do another one another day. It's kind of a big topic, and it's maybe the next one will be better. So thanks for coming. Bye.